Hello and welcome everybody to today's virtual On the Couch session with Rodney Harrex, the Chief Executive of South Australia's Tourism Commission. My name's Colby Kringle and I'm the State Marketing Manager for PwC. Before we start, let me acknowledge that the land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. I'd also like to acknowledge the IPAA team and their major partners, PwC, Flinders University, the Office of the Commissioner of Public Sector Employment's South Australian Leadership Academy, and the government's senior management team for being able to create this opportunity today. So Rodney, thanks for joining us.
Colby, it's good to be chatting to you.
I thought we could get started by hearing a brief overview of sort of South Australia's tourism industry, how it's been over the last few years and where it is today.
Colby, look, we set a journey for the visitor economy in South Australia in 2013, and that was to achieve $8 billion in expenditure in this sector by the end of 2020. We actually achieved that at the end of 2019. So the tourism sector in South Australia has grown rapidly over the last 5 years. There's been major investment by the private sector, by government, by local government, and this has created a lot for consumers to get out and experience South Australia, but importantly here in Adelaide as well. So we've seen significant growth. Then we saw, drought last year. We saw the impact of bushfires and now the situation with COVID. And there's no doubt, travel was restricted across the country, internationally, and we couldn't go to our region. So literally overnight, our organisation, who's chartered with encouraging travel, we actually were developing campaigns to stop travel. So, great growth, massive employment, up until the end of last year, so really in a strong space. And South Australia was recognised across the nation in the growth that we were seeing.
So Rodney, you mentioned the bushfires at the beginning of the year. I'm interested to hear about how the South Australian tourism industries adapted in the wake of those events.
Look, at the back end of 2019, we saw the fires in the Adelaide Hills, and then they went through into the fires on Kangaroo Island. And I think what was sort of so significant about that is the fires at a national level as well. It really jolted consumer confidence. Consumers were nervous about going out to the regions. And so despite the fact that, we weren't seeing that we had our own devastation, but the scale of what was happening, on the eastern seaboard, Adelaideans weren't going to the region, so we saw this immediate level of concern. And so we set about working across government, working with different agencies, determining where was safe and what was right. And I think, this has led us into COVID, how there's been this great collaboration across government, emergency services, the Department of Environment, everybody was working together to say, right, how do we get people in a safe way back to our regions as we sort of came out of that fire situation? How do we get the right information in front of people? What roads are open? Where can they go? This is not about spectator travel. We actually want people who are going to go to the regions and invest and buy product. And so again, it was about working with emergency services, making sure on our website we had the right information. So it was about taking leadership. What we need to recognise is that the visitor economy in South Australia, it's made up of 18,000 micro and small businesses. And so they really depend on government. They depend on local government and leadership to help and work with them. And, that's what we set about doing. We embraced that. We worked across government and, we launched the Welcome Back campaign, and we had a huge response to that. And again, I want to thank South Australians. I want to thank, everybody that worked across government because we got people out and about. And in some ways we were a little bit too successful because some people sort of diverted. They were going to other parts of South Australia and they went to the hills and Kangaroo Island. So I did have some complaints from other parts of the state. But I've got to say, since COVID now, as we've gone into COVID, so this again was about how does government provide leadership? How do we make sure that the right information is out there? How do we make sure that the communities at a regional level are feeling confident to, as we work through COVID, to actually welcome visitors back? And, we did a lot of work. We engaged with local government. And again, I think this was really crucial because local government are core to regional communities. Regional communities look up to local government. We did these round table sessions during COVID. It was about hearing from the regional communities. Are they ready to welcome back visitors? What messaging do they need? It was about working with the health department to make sure we structured the right messaging. And that's been the crucial thing for us. It's about making sure that the right information has been in front of consumers and business. And that was really crucial for us. We put a lot of effort into that, and the feedback we've had is that it's helped people make informed decisions.
Yep, so when we look at government's role, particularly as we've seen a few initiatives over the last couple of weeks around boosting SA's economy, how do you see that playing out for South Australia's tourism?
Look, I think, what is clear in difficult times is strong leadership, very clear leadership in terms of communicating, because people want information to make the right decisions. I look at recent times, the announcement around the opening up of New South Wales. These are really big steps. We saw the opening up of Queensland. And so it's how we as a government, how we respond to that. And so, we've made sure that as we were ready to open up to Queensland, that we're putting the right information out in front of businesses here in South Australia, but also to consumers in Queensland to get them ready to travel to South Australia. The fact is our international borders are closed. Every year, Australians spend $365 billion going overseas. That is a huge amount of money. Let's flip some of that to being spent domestically. Look, I've been getting out across the state over the last 3 weeks, and what we're hearing is businesses are saying to us, consumers are saying, we typically be in Europe now. And so there is this flipping in terms of people are going out. So there are people out there who've got the propensity to travel. And so again, we're making sure that we're encouraging, because I want South Australians and I want Australians to be our future ambassadors about how great our state is, how wonderful our experiences are, and the people of South Australia they're welcoming. And I think this is a really crucial thing. We look at Victoria. Victoria's in a world of pain at the moment, and we continue to talk to Victorians about what they can do in South Australia. Why? Because we want to make sure that we welcome them back. It's really crucial. When they're going through difficult times, we've got to make sure that we give them things to look forward to.
So in terms of the campaigns that you've got out in market at the moment, particularly, are they different for each state, or are they one singular message around South Australia?
So we're running 2 campaigns at the moment. One is for within South Australia. We call that intrastate travel. And again, I want to thank South Australians. We have seen regional accommodation back to pre-COVID levels, which is just phenomenal. So South Australians are out there. And that campaign it's a great state to be in. And, South Australians have really got behind that. It's a different messaging for interstate. And so as we open up, so it's about welcoming back visitors, and that's really what we're doing. We saw the introduction of Qantas coming back into Adelaide, direct services from Sydney. There was a huge opportunity there. When you think about it, South Australia is open to travel from everywhere except Victoria, and we understand why. That's a great message for our state. It's a great message for our economy. And again, health professionals have managed this situation incredibly well with government, and now it's about how we get business back up and running, how we support that in a really structured way so that we can get people employed and doing what we do well.
We've seen some of the businesses in the South Australian tourism industry adapting during COVID. What are some of the good examples that you've seen in terms of the opportunities that people have sought out during this time?
Look, I think the great thing about small business is that they're responsive and innovative, and they're looking at, what are the changing consumer trends. One of the things that we're seeing is that and we see this through research, is consumers feel particularly comfortable and safe travelling in their vehicle. So there's a trend towards self-drive travel. So it's about working with businesses to say, look, this is a trend that we're seeing, this is coming through in the data. And so again, we're seeing products that are responding to that. A good example, I was over in Streaky Bay just this week, travelled from Ceduna through to Port Lincoln, and the local government there is investing in upgrading of their boat ramp. Might sound small, but it's actually a big deal, because people want to know that, they take their car, they take their boat, they can. And so then businesses locally, there's investment in cabin accommodation. Cabin accommodation in caravan parks is the fastest growing accommodation sector in Australia. And it's the same in South Australia. And so what we're seeing is businesses investing in this. It's a great sign because what it means is that South Australians and interstate visitors, as we open up, can get out and about. We've seen innovation around glamping accommodation north of Clare, in McLaren Vale. This is about responding to, again, consumers are looking for different experiences. They feel comfortable with their family, they feel comfortable with their partner, they'll travel, they'll do that as a couple. And so what we're seeing is businesses respond to that. There are new health requirements around how, you can do a cellar door experience. And so again, businesses innovating, they're looking at how they deliver that. And again, I do want to really commend, the innovation that is happening with business. And again, they want to work with health, they want to do the right thing. And so again, we're making sure that we help them with the right information to do that.
When I look at a personal example of family travelling within our state and travelling up to Whyalla for the first time in 20 years to swim with cuttlefish and the rest, what do you think from a travel prediction in terms of getting interstaters over to those regions and from a short, medium and long term?
Look, it's really interesting. I think Australia is going to see a massive sort of boom in domestic tourism. Again, with our international borders closed, I think this is a really good opportunity. Look, one of the challenges we've had as a country is Australians have a real desire to get out, explore, and particularly get on a plane. And what's been interesting in my career, I've been very fortunate. I've lived overseas and worked overseas for a period of time. Australians actually know more about overseas than they did about their own country, and it was quite interesting. I'd be in Germany, I'd be listening to, a visitor that's been to Australia talking about some amazing parts of Australia, and they know more than we do. So I see this as a huge opportunity to get Australians out and about. I think with the opening up of New South Wales, we're going to see a significant number of grey nomads hook their vans up, come through to South Australia. So look, I think this is a real opportunity, and we've been responding to that. So I'll give you a really good example. As we've been hearing from the regions and listening to what consumer trends are, we've just invested $1.5 million in road signage, working with the Department of Transport, looking and identifying where those gaps are, working with local government. How do you slow people down, get them to spend an extra, time experiencing those local attractions, and that means they spend another night there. They eat in a cafe, they eat in a restaurant, they fill their car up with fuel. So all of a sudden this economic worth and value to the region is multiplied. So it's a bit like, how do you slow them down to spend more time? So, look, I was very fortunate. I went to Sydney for the resumption of services by Qantas. And Qantas was saying to me, they put on a daily service that's now at double daily, literally within 2 days of the announcement of opening the border. Queensland was very similar. So again, it just shows the opportunity. And there's a human side to this as well, which was really wonderful to see. Families have been separated. This has been an incredibly difficult time. And just seeing that emotion of people coming together, and those families will then get out and about and explore. And I think that's a great opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, and so you talk about your time in Germany and living overseas. Have you got any expectations on when the international borders will reopen?
The international borders, there's a really interesting discussion on that. I think what we'll see is definitely a staged approach to that. There's been a lot of discussion around New Zealand. What I would say to you, we are ready from a state point of view, from a promotional point of view to run the moment there's an inkling of New Zealand. We are one of the only states we've kept well engaged with the New Zealand consumer. Why? Look, we get about 55,000 of them coming to South Australia, but they love the Murray, they love those sort of regions where they can get out and experience our river. They love our city. So we are ready to run. What's my prediction? Look, my crystal ball's not that good. I've fractured it a few times lately. I've made a few sort of thoughts and expectations, and I've not done so well there. So, but look, I'm pretty confident, hopefully by Christmas.
Yeah.
But don't book your trip to New Zealand. Book a trip around South Australia.
Good suggestion. So what about in 5 years' time? What do you think the impacts of COVID will have on the tourism industry?
Look, I think this sector is one that is innovative and responsive, and we've seen that. We see that through drought, fires, and now COVID. Small business leaders are incredibly innovative, and they really need to be commended and supported. Again, what we're already seeing through this COVID period is that innovation, investment. They're looking at what is the new consumer, the change consumer, what do they want? I think we're going to see this sector continue to go from strength to strength. We're seeing investment. Business want to invest. If business is investing, we need, as a government, to work and support that, and we're doing that. The state government just announced a $20 million regional investment program, and that's about working with regional businesses. This is about making it easy for business to invest. We recently announced a voucher program here in South Australia, and again, it was quite targeted. There have been voucher programs announced in other states. We were really strategic with ours. We know we've got a massive challenge in our city. Okay, without international borders open, without all of sort of interstate open, the city, the corporate traveller, we want South Australians to come and have a night in our city. Her Majesty's Theatre's just reopened. It's spectacular. We want South Australians to come into the city and experience what this beautiful city has to offer. Come in, have a night, bring the family in. There's plenty to do. As a couple, come in. I'm going to try and get my voucher as well on the 15th of October at 9 o'clock.
Fantastic. And suggesting travelling interstate and exploring new things, you've said you've done quite a bit of it. Have you got any staycation recommendations?
Look, this is a really dangerous one for me as the head of the Tourism Commission. I do have a really special spot for the West Coast. I love the West Coast. I love getting out to Ceduna. I love driving back along the coast. It's something quite special. We've been out to the Oyster Fest 3 times now as a family. I love the oysters out there. As you can see, I do love my seafood. It's a very special part of our state. The water is spectacular. It's just a lovely time to spend with family, and it's a beautiful area.
Well, thank you so much for your insights, Rodney. Before we round up, is there anything else you'd like to leave with us today?
Look, I think the key thing that I would like to say is just the collaboration of working across government. I think during these difficult times, it's incredibly important that we are a cohesive and aligned group. And, that brings out the best for South Australians. And so I'm really proud as an organisation, as the SATC, and, how we've worked across government, how we've worked with different parts of government, because it does make a difference to business. It makes a difference to our community as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.